with Abe Baldonado. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Chile Wire. We are here today with State Director of Americans for Prosperity, Sarah Hetemi. Sarah, thank you so much for joining the Chile Wire.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to be on one of my favorite podcasts.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I got to ask, because this is something we usually do. You've been in New Mexico now for, what is it? Are you near a year or just under a year?
A little over a year and a half.
Okay, so red or green?
I'm all the way Christmas, baby.
Christmas?
All the way
all
Christmas.
Right, all right. A lot of people say Christmas. Well, Sarah, so you have a year in now here with Americans for Prosperity here in New Mexico. I know that you all have started like a new rebrand. That's kind of been your big effort right now to rebrand AFP in New Mexico, build those relationships. But I'd love to hear more about Americans for Prosperity and some of the efforts that you're working on right now.
Absolutely. So just to take it a step back for those who haven't heard about us, we are active in all 50 states, operate in all 50. We have chapters with full-time staff like here in 37 states. And we are a national state-based organization. And what that means is where there is federal issues, we will work to advance. We also look at each individual state uniquely. And here, that looks very different than what, Texas faces or Illinois. So in that way, we are national but state-based, and we can advance our own agendas as long as one common goal. And the main work we're looking for here is really making it the true land of enchantment. I don't know if we can claim that yet, for all New Mexicans. So really looking to empower the individual, the family, small businesses, and unleash energy production, as we are the second largest oil producing state in the nation.
That's right. And Sarah, so you brought up a good point that, right now you don't see us technically being the land of enchantment just yet. And rightfully, I think geographically, we absolutely are. We have the most stunning scenery across the state. But our business practices, our politics here have kind of held New Mexico back. And I'd just love to get what your thoughts on what you've seen coming to New Mexico. Like, you're an outsider, you're new to New Mexico, but from other states that you've been in, how does it look in New Mexico? Like, what have you seen? Because I feel like New Mexicans, a lot of times, we become very tolerant of our surroundings, of crime, of education statistics. We just kind of say, yeah, it is what it is. It's always been this way. We want to always keep it that way. And we just kind of shrug it off and move along. But as someone coming new into New Mexico, what have you seen?
Yeah. Let me start with why I fell in love with the state, because I think we joke that it is a hidden gem, right? A hidden secret. But I really, really think it is. I don't think it's a joke. I have never been to a place that has better weather. We have the 4 seasons, and they're really forgiving. Like, you're not really dealing with the elements. You get over 300 days of sunshine, 310 if you're in Albuquerque. But no matter where you are in the state, you're getting the sunshine. You're getting the happiness, the joy. The people are some of the most hardworking, genuine, community-minded people I have ever met. You got to work hard to find better people, and we have the best food. I do think.
Amen to that.
Right?
Amen to that.
But I think the massive issue here is we have a leadership problem. We have a leadership problem in not representing the interests of New Mexicans. They have been forgotten, and I think it's easy to get down on yourself and feel like, oh, well, things aren't going well, and lose hope and lose kind of the goal of what's bigger.
Yeah.
New Mexicans have a lot more power than they realize. And I can't wait for New Mexicans to wake up. And that's part of why we're here, to help them, make them more aware of what's really going on in Santa Fe. It's really easy to get lost in the shuffle and the headlines. But what are these people actually doing? What are the bills that are bringing forth? What kind of policies are they bringing forth? What are they voting on? How does that affect your family, yourself, your job, your community? If we start looking at those things, New Mexico could be dangerous.
Yeah. I agree. And I think you make a good point that we need to get New Mexicans to know what their elected leaders are doing and what they're voting on, who they're getting money from, who they're giving money to. Um, it's vital. And I think you make a good point that, a lot of these families are working hard and sometimes they don't have time to know everything that's happening in the political world. And so I've always said that an elected leader's job is to educate their constituents. So if you take a vote on a particular bill, whether you support it or you oppose it, it's your duty to educate your constituents as to why you voted the way you did. And I feel like we don't see a whole lot of that anymore. We don't see that statesman or stateswoman mentality that we used to see where, elected leaders actually had a conversation with their folks to understand the policy aspect. And policy could be very complex and sometimes it could be very boring. And so you have to be able to give it to your constituents in a way that's digestible. And that way they can understand, hey, okay, now I understand why you voted this way. But I think you're spot on there that so many of our people in New Mexico just are unaware of what's happening. And, when they talk to someone, they'll realize like, oh my God, I didn't know that. And I've had many of those conversations. But it takes those conversations for people to become aware of, I did not know that was what was happening.
And it's not easy, right? With
No.
the political theater that is out there, with busy lives from 9 to 5, you come home to kids. I mean, it's tough. So I'm certainly not sitting here and putting the fingers on the Mexicans. I think
Yeah.
it's our leaders who have not made that easier, not transparent enough.
Yep.
And that's part of why we're having this big initiative statewide called our Protect Prosperity and Defend Taxpayers initiative. Part of that initiative is having events in person across the whole state. We started out in Santa Fe, we went up to Farmington, we just wrapped up Hobbs and Artesia, and we have another event coming up here in Albuquerque next Tuesday, November 18th, for our tour. And we're featuring 2 special guests. We have former gubernatorial candidate and podcast host of No Doubt About It, Mark Ronchetti. And then we have our regional vice president and podcast host of our podcast, the American Potential podcast, David Fromm, to come speak. And what we've been doing at these events is really bring both community leaders, business leaders, elected officials, and talk about the issues at the federal and state level and the solutions to them.
Yeah.
And a lot of this portion has been focused on, first, we pushed for the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act because it would make a big difference for New Mexicans. And now we've been celebrating it and talking about if our leaders embrace some of those big elements, like the lower taxes, unleashing our energy production, finding some solutions to our education and healthcare system, we would be, cooking with gas.
Yeah, cooking with gas. And I love that you brought up the statewide tour. I had the privilege of hosting in Farmington in our San Juan Basin where oil and gas reigns. And they are a great leader in producing oil and natural gas. But the turnout there was great. And the conversation around the One Big Beautiful Bill about its positive contributions. And unfortunately, I think what we've seen nationally is there's been a lot of misinformation on the One Big Beautiful Bill. And I think we've seen, as you said, it hasn't been celebrated enough, especially by our own delegation here in New Mexico, which they actually voted against it. It's unfortunate because, they're telling folks that this bill actually hurts middle to low income earners, which that is not true. It actually protects them and makes sure that they get more money in their pocket and that it's not going to Uncle Sam, it's going to you. And so I appreciate the work that you have done through AFP to educate New Mexicans about the impacts of that bill, because through the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that passed in 2017, I mean, had it sunset and we had not passed the one big beautiful bill, I'm sure you know the exact number, but it would have been a significant tax increase for the middle class.
Yeah, New Mexicans on average, the average family would have faced up to $1,800, if not more.
Wow.
That's just the average family. So those numbers look a little different. And $1,800 is no joke.
That's a lot of money.
It would really end.
Yeah.
And the American dream or life for some New Mexicans, and certainly small businesses in the state. And that's the kind of tone deafness we see out of our leadership in Santa Fe and DC, right?
Yeah.
This past session, instead of focusing on real solutions for New Mexicans, like education solutions, we fall dead last in education for the 9th year in a row, and both math and reading. And that's not only embarrassing, but it's a shame. New Mexicans deserve way better. Our healthcare problem. I don't know one New Mexican who has a doctor and not a nurse practitioner, and nothing wrong with a nurse practitioner. We love them. But there's something wrong when I don't meet one New Mexican who has a regular family doctor.
Yeah.
And we don't see these kind of solutions being passed. Instead, what did we see? Over 20 bills attacking our energy production, our oil and gas, our economic engine, over 50% of our budget. We saw one of the largest tax hikes in New Mexico history being introduced through the Paid Family Medical Leave Act. And that's insane. I mean, it would have put small businesses out of business, especially in certain districts. And that's where our initiative, Protect Prosperity and Defend Taxpayers, is larger than in-person events. We also have a digital campaign going across 12 districts in the state. We have mail going across 12 districts in the state. And we have door-to-door conversations going on in all of Albuquerque and all of Las Cruces and the areas in between. Now, we can't hit every single part, right?
Yeah.
So we focus on swing districts. We focus on districts where certain policies would either mean it could really be troublesome for those districts. Like, I have a hard time seeing District 12 surviving the Paid Family Medical Leave Act. And so we're certainly making them aware of how their legislator voted. Reversely, we're also thanking legislators that are often going unheard. And it's hard to see their work as some of their bills aren't making it to committee, and they're not always being treated fair. So we're trying to amplify their voices and show constituents that these guys are actually voting the way you would like.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think about, had we not passed the one big beautiful bill, and we would have seen those $1,800 tax increases happen on just the average family in New Mexico. But on top of that, you start taking out a PFML tax. And I know the far left progressive side of the Democrat Party tried to say it's not a tax, it's a premium. I'm like, well, you're not an insurance company, so it can be a premium. When government takes money from individuals, it is a tax. And so now you're going to tax them when they already saw their taxes. Thankfully, their taxes didn't increase from the federal level because we passed the one big beautiful bill. But I think about the repercussions that would have occurred had they been double taxed now. You had paid family medical leave, and now you have the sunset of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. I mean, that would have just really driven poverty even further in New Mexico. And it's just something, like you said, just oftentimes falls on deaf ears in Santa Fe and also nationally. But kudos are to be given for the legislators who are stepping up and actually taking the hard votes and saying, this isn't good for New Mexico, and I'm okay with that. And unfortunately, those legislators have seen their own party attack them and try to primary them and run someone against them who's going to push these farther left policies that they're just not feasible for New Mexicans. I mean, New Mexico is already struggling as it is. And, we keep driving our state to be more of a welfare state. I think there should be a wake-up call on what we're seeing in New Mexico with the amount of people on our SNAP food programs, on our Medicaid programs. And like I've always said, these programs are good programs for people who fall on hard times, because we know people oftentimes fall on hard times, but they're meant to be a trampoline. and they're meant to be a hand up. They're supposed to help people get back up on their feet. But when you have people living on these programs for generations and for decades, I mean, at some point, that system becomes unsustainable.
It's not working, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you said it. It's been for generations. That's never the intent of it. And when we look at just how the percentage of our population that are entered in these programs versus other states,
Yeah.
you can see that there's a clear issue here, not only on the entitlement programs, but the abuse of it.
Yeah.
And the abuse of it is a shame because there are people who truly need them. And we do support those entitlement programs for those who truly need them, right? That's why they're there. So we got to take out the scam and abuse. So people who truly need have those available.
Yeah. And I know it's been said by the Legislative Finance Committee that potentially out of the 400,000 folks on SNAP, that there is a risk that, because we also have one of the highest error rates as well on distributions for SNAP. And it was said that it could potentially be that half of those folks, of the 400,000, 200,000 of those are incorrect and potentially fraudulent. Like, that's a lot. Like,
that is
a
massive.
Lot.
that is massive. A lot. And, looking at, to go back to the federal level, but looking at the one big beautiful bill, I'm not surprised.
No.
We found billions in scam, abuse, and fraud and Medicare and Medicaid. So, I mean, I'm not surprised.
Is it common sense? Because I think a lot of the conversations I've seen out there have been that there's been a lot of pushback on work requirements. But to me, that sounds like a common sense thing. Like, yeah, if you have free time, you're unemployed, and you're receiving benefits, and you're able-bodied, and you're healthy,
you don't even have to be employed. That's the wonderful. I mean, it's not wonderful. I recommend you get employed, but the only requirement is that if you're able-bodied, that you volunteer at least 20 hours a week. So if you need a place to do that at, feel free to come to Americans for Prosperity in New Mexico. We'll help you with those 20 hours every week, and then you'll get your benefits.
They have a great grassroots program. No, absolutely. But I think you're spot on. I kind of want to shift gears to education, because I've been seeing a lot of misinformation out there about the tax credits inside the One Big Beautiful Bill. And I saw it with the Albuquerque Public Schools school board election. They asked a lot of school board candidates, if they supported the vouchers within the One Big Beautiful Bill. The tax credit in the One Big Beautiful Bill is not a voucher. It's a tax credit to provide struggling families and even just middle-class families who feel that their school district is not providing high-quality education or tutoring to be able to send their kid to a private school or to receive private tutoring and to be credited for that expense. So it's not a voucher. It's ultimately saying, hey, parents, we support your decision to ensure that your child gets the high quality education that you believe they deserve. And every child, regardless of zip code in our state, deserves high quality education.
That's exactly right.
Unfortunately, that is not happening. And it is a reality that's happening is, the instruction that someone gets in Northeast Heights, Albuquerque is not the same instruction that they're perhaps getting in South Valley, Albuquerque. And that's just reality. And it's not just here in New Mexico. It's across the entire United States. It's in rural and in urban areas. So it's not choosing who gets high quality, who gets not high quality, but it's just truth of the matter is that you have some schools that are providing higher quality education than others. And we're now empowering families to make the best decisions for themselves and their students. But I've been very frustrated when I see school board candidates saying, yeah, I don't support that voucher. Well, it's not a voucher. You should actually encourage your constituents that if you feel that your middle school, high school, elementary school is not delivering for your child, take advantage of these tax credits, get them tutoring, because you will be credited for that on your taxes. Like, the government will give you back your hard-earned money, which it's your hard-earned money. It's not the government's money, but they will return your money to you to take care of your family.
Yeah, and honestly, Abe, I think it's confusing because there's nothing to be against. What we're
Hmm.
doing is, I guess, it's ending discrimination in education,
Yeah.
right? And who's against that? Who's against every child having the best class education they could get, the most opportunity they could get? We know
Yeah.
that if it's just up to the kids, that's not going to be the same
Yeah.
opportunity for all. So I don't know who could be against, the single mom in the South Valley having the exact same educational opportunities as someone up in Northeast Heights or in Rio Rancho. And isn't that's how it should be? I would love to see who comes out against that, who comes out against our kids.
Yeah. Well, and just, you should be advocating for kids. If you're on the school board, you should say, you know what, that is actually a great program. And unfortunately, we see school board members. I was a charter school governance board member, and I support school choice. Charter schools are public schools in New Mexico, but I still support school choice. I think parents should have every opportunity to send their kid where they believe that they're going to get the best education.
And I think there's a misconception when people hear school choice. Somehow they think that means supporting only one type of choice.
Mhm.
School choice means supporting all choice. That also means public schools.
Yeah.
One of the main reasons why I'm so for school choice is I think it actually betters the results in public schools,
Yeah.
where the majority of kids will be anyway. So I want those schools competing, getting better, and not getting away with just the bare minimum, right?
Yeah, that's
So
just right. It's a free market mentality, right? That when you have competition, you tend to compete and you tend to say, no, we want the students, we want to provide them the best high quality education. And that's when you create prosperity, is you create it through a free market mentality, is that you're going to have to compete for the best. And if you want to be the best, you got to be the best. And that's where, and we've seen it in other states that have passed universal ed choice, is that public schools then have no choice but to compete. That if you want
we
to keep
are
those kids.
so behind. We're behind our neighbors in so many ways. But yet another way we are. Texas just passed educational savings accounts.
Mhm.
Arizona passed them. This year also Tennessee did. And here we are. We're at the bottom and we're not looking at new solutions. We're not even looking at school choice for the disabled.
Yeah, that's just right. I actually interviewed Megan Rosker from the Mace Center for Learning, which they work with neurodivergent and dyslexic students. And they provide instruction that is critical to those students who are diagnosed as neurodivergent or dyslexic. And again, they receive a lot of pushback as well from a lot of the public schools. But let's be real, many of the public schools do not have the resources to address those child's needs. And that's just the reality.
Yeah, and we should look at who's being protectionist and who
Mhm.
has the best interest in mind for our kids.
Yeah. Well, and what we've seen is it's the adults, right? The adults are self-serving. The teachers unions, they're all putting adults over students. There's not a students union or a parents union that is united to say, no, we're standing for students. We're standing for parents. Instead you have the adult-centric organizations that are saying, we're looking out for the best interests of adults here. Like, we want our teachers, any teacher, the best teachers I ever met put students first. I've never heard a great teacher say, it's all about me, because the reason they went into teaching was they wanted to teach children. They wanted to create the next generation of astronauts, of scientists, of doctors, and that's the reward as a teacher. I've had the pleasure of experiencing that. I've had former students tell me, I went into political science because you got me really into political science, being my teacher. And I realized I could make a change. I never thought I could, but I realized I could be part of the process that drives change by having conversation, having dialogue, and speaking with people who oftentimes think differently than you.
I love that you say that. This is so random, but actually, there was many little steps that got me involved in politics. But one of the main things was my college professor, who we had very different ideals and beliefs, but she really just got me motivated, and she loved that I had a different perspective to give and empowered me on that.
Yeah.
So it's like crazy what one teacher, what one professor can do for your whole life.
Absolutely. And those type of teachers are selfless. They really put students first. But unfortunately, we have organizations like teachers unions who put the adults and the money ahead of everything else. And children shouldn't be looked at as a number. They should be looked at as a future doctor, as a future lawyer, as a future physicist, whatever it may be, and also a future teacher. Hopefully you create another teacher to give back, because it's a really selfless thing to do. And all my friends who have stayed in the classroom and have stayed the course, God bless them, because they are doing something truly amazing that, a lot of teachers burn out and they move into other careers. I moved into other careers. There's other teachers that I've worked with who have moved into other careers. But the ones who stick in it for the long haul are truly amazing.
They are.
And they deserve all the credit. And I agree. Yeah, they should get paid. And I think that our best teachers should actually be incentivized. Like, they should have some merit system to where if you are driving results as an educator, there's no reason you shouldn't be paid more than another teacher. And we've unfortunately made that such a terrible thing in New Mexico. We've seen a lot of pushback here from incentivizing our best teachers.
And too often, I think education spending actually doesn't have anything to do with the teacher salaries. Very often, it's this administrative cost and sunken cost. No one understands where it goes. We need more money, right? But the results aren't following.
Right.
And that's a really interesting story in far too many states. In rural states like New Mexico, I think it's almost a crime that we haven't embraced educational choice.
Yeah.
Think about all the communities that could really benefit from that. And what are leaders doing to meet those needs?
Yeah, exactly. I worked for the last administration, and at the tail end, I had the privilege of sitting down with our public education secretary. And at that time, the lawsuit of Martinez Yazzie was really moving forward, and we knew the next administration was going to run with it. But he said something to me that, sure enough, played out to be true, was money doesn't fix the problem. And the new administration came in under Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, and they threw tons of money. Like, okay, Yazzie Martinez says that we have not put enough money towards education. We're going to throw a bunch of money at this problem.
Has the spending gone up like 70%?
Significantly, yes.
Since
around
MOG?
70%, yes.
That's a lot.
In education. And our results actually backtracked. And
there you go.
So there was the proof that, and I remember sitting there saying, it came true. Like, he was spot on, that we have this idea that money fixes the problem, and it doesn't. It takes programs, it takes buy-in, it takes actual work, and it's the teachers. It's providing them with the resources that they need. And previously, when I worked for Think New Mexico as their education reform director, what we found was that instruction and student support over the last decade had only grown by 20% in spending, but central office administrative expenditures grew by 50%. So where's the problem?
And then that's where I say sunken cost. I see education spending kind of being like that in general and far too many states, but New Mexico is getting no results.
Yeah. I mean, look at AP. I don't know if you ever had a chance to go to APS, but I'd encourage you to visit their Twin Towers here in Albuquerque. And it is shocking when you see the directory of staff that they have for the district. It's like, do you really need all these staff members? Like, do you need a esports director to oversee all esports programs? Probably, and probably making a really good salary. And, not to say that person, but I really think we got to stop treating education as a jobs program. And that's what it's become, is that, we're treating it as a jobs program versus actually what is needed. You need the teacher. You need to invest in teachers. You need to invest at the local school level, not at the central office, not in administration. You need to put it down to where it is, and that's the classrooms.
Yep, I couldn't agree more.
So on that note, let's talk energy. You saw firsthand how New Mexico is, our leadership is always bashing oil and gas. but it's our bread and butter. Like if we did not have oil and gas, we would not have the surpluses to pay for universal childcare, to make the SNAP benefits appropriations that they recently made this last special session. But yet again, we have lawmakers who are in the majority that continue trying to bite the hand that feeds them. Has that been shocking to you since you've been in New Mexico?
I think it's really tone deaf, and it's almost like, sometimes in politics things get tricky, right? They make sure to not say the quiet part out loud. But it's surprising, both on the federal level, we've heard the quiet part out loud with this government shutdown. They've said, oh, this is leverage, which is crazy to say out loud.
Out loud, yeah.
We're talking about the most vulnerable population that truly needs these entitlement programs, and you're talking about leverage. That's nuts. And also, the American electorate spoke up, and that's the makeup of the House and the Senate and the president that we have now.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you can talk about leverage that way.
And old clips of Obama came out during a government shutdown under his term where he said, if you want to change it, go win elections. And that's what he said. He said, you may not like it, but we won, you didn't, and this is where we're at. And Trump has kind of said the same thing. And now it's like, how dare he? He's, we had a state senator from Las Cruces during the special session say that Trump wanted to intentionally hurt SNAP recipients because they're Democrats. And we had to show a video that that's not what he said. He said that I want to help these folks, but the party that claims to be representing them is actually hurting them. Like, they're saying I'm using them as a pawn, but technically they're the ones that are saying we have the leverage. Like, we have the leverage because now we can push, what we want, because we will hold Americans hostage. We will hold their entitlement programs hostage until we get what we want. And we're going to turn around and just say it's Trump's fault. And a lot of people are going to buy into that. Unfortunately, but
what
the reality
is
dignity. It really is. It really is. And it's unfortunate because what Trump said was SNAP recipients and welfare recipients usually tend to vote Democrat, which is true. There's data to prove that out of registered voters that folks on welfare programs tend to vote Democrat. And that's just a reality. But what he said next was, I want to help Democrats and Republicans. I want to end the government shutdown. Like, they are the ones using them as leverage when I am trying to provide them the programs that they need and to open the government and pay our government employees. And, of course, they're using the healthcare subsidies, which I've had to have many conversations with folks saying, those subsidies don't impact you. That's money that goes to the insurance company, not you. We are making insurance companies rich off government subsidies. And that is not capitalism. Like, I cannot support that. And I don't know why you would support that you would say, yeah, you know what? The Democrats have a good point. Like, we should make sure these insurance companies get these government subsidies. No, because that does not help you. Like, that does not help you at all.
It's crazy, it's not going to people. It's going to the big insurance companies, not the small guys. And that's really also, without that would drive up the premiums. It tells you it's a failed program, right?
Right.
And
they don't want to admit that, right? They don't want to admit that Obamacare is a failure. But anyone who has ever been on the exchange to shop for insurance post Obamacare will tell you that they saw healthcare costs rise significantly pre-Obamacare.
Absolutely, they did. Yeah.
Well, Sarah, just want to open it up to you. Are there any other initiatives that you all are working on right now? I know next week you all will be hosting your statewide tour here in Albuquerque. We'll provide information to our viewers if they'd like to RSVP and attend that with Mark Ronchetti and David from AFP. I think that's going to be a fabulous event. I'm looking forward to the conversation that they have.
Free event. If I failed to say that earlier, it's a free event. We got free food, free beverages, and a great time. So
that's amazing.
You just need to RSVP so we can plan for you.
Awesome. Sarah, anything else you'd like to know from AFP before we wrap up?
No, we would love for you to follow us on social media. We're Americans for Prosperity New Mexico, and we would love for you to get involved with us. And we're just excited to be here and for 2026 to come. It's a big year, and we're hoping to be the solution to changing some of the leadership problem we have here.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up, though, I reminded myself the Libre program that you all have as part of AFP.
Yeah.
Can you just elaborate a little bit on what Libre does? I think Libre is a fantastic organization, and I know they're a partner organization of yours. And so just would like our folks to learn more about Libre.
I'm so glad you brought that up. So here, I really should always say AFP Libre because we're one team.
Mm-hmm.
And Libre is exactly what Americans for Prosperity is, but with a focus on the Hispanic and Latino families and community. And so they're really going into those communities and fighting for those communities specifically. So that's the exciting part. And our team is expanding too. We are bringing in a new Libre strategic director actually this Monday. Her name is Christy Martinez.
Awesome.
And I couldn't be more excited.
That is exciting. One thing I will note that what I love about Libre is the dedication to our folks who are moving in from other countries, gaining their citizenship here. You all help them with studying for their citizenship test, but you also are always there when they go through their naturalization ceremony. You all host a big celebration for them as well.
We do, and we even do English classes. So we will really be with you the whole way of the journey from day one till day when you're naturalized, like myself.
Absolutely. So if there's any of our viewers out there who are in the process or need any assistance, I'm sure they can reach out to attend these classes.
Absolutely. And for anyone who's interested in our event or to just get involved with us, feel free to reach out to me personally, and I will get you in touch with our staff. My number is 907-841-5970.
Awesome. Well, y'all, that wraps it up this week for the Chile Wire. Sarah, I'd love to thank you for joining the Chile Wire. I'm sure we're going to have plenty more conversations as you all get ready for 2026. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of election coverage next year. We're going to be talking a lot about the elections and also what transpires at our 2026 legislative session, which should be probably make for a doozy is what I'm guessing. So
that sounds great. And thank you so much for having me on the podcast. It was an honor.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, awesome, y'all. We'll see you next time on the Chile Wire. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. Please follow us on Instagram, X, TikTok, and all social media channels. And be sure to like this podcast. We'll talk to you soon.